Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet. I know some of you are wondering, what kind of a contraption is Colin making today? Well, this is a jig for making perfect dado cuts. If you're making a shelving unit or bookcases and you want to put some cut dados in the sides and you want nice, accurate, and nice tight fitting dados, this little jig won't take you long to make and it'll give you perfect results. So stick around, let me show you how we make this. Okay, these are all the components that I'm working with. I'm going to move these out of the way because I'm going to talk about those in a little bit. So the three main components that I have are the base, and because this is used plywood, I sanded the bottom of this one so that it's a bit stickier. It doesn't slide so easy. This one, it doesn't matter. I want to put this underneath because when I get finished, this is going to be the square. So I'll be able to take that and put it right on a piece of wood, and I know that it's square. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to make a measuring cut in our scrap base here that we're going to be making. So what I need to do, I've already installed a 3/8 bit in my router, and I've already taken, this is where I wanted to tell you about these pieces that I have here. Now, when we make this jig, what we need to do, we need to compensate for the thickness of the bit. And if you're going to be using a 1/4 inch bit, you'll need an exact 1/4 inch matching piece of wood. In this case, I'm using a 3/8 bit, so I've got a 3/8 strip of wood, and it's going to be, I'm going to use it to tuck that in there to compensate for the thickness of the blade. Now, here's what's going to happen. Now, I've taken a moment to fasten my base carcass down to my bottom sheet that I'm going to be doing my test cuts on. There's my 3/8 strip. Now, I'm going to be making a test cut with the 3/8 strip on there, and I've already set the depth of the router, and I'm going to be using what I'll call the back of the router, if you will, the rounded area. Now, most routers also have a flat area, and a lot of you are going to be wondering, why wouldn't you use the flat area? Well, here's the reason why. I've learned the hard way that when you use the flat edge, as long as you absolutely keep it straight, it works fine. But when you're pushing a router and you're moving around, and sometimes the bit wants to wander, when you use the back the straight edge part like that, look at how much the router can go out of alignment. Whereas when you're using the back, you can move the router back and forth and the bit doesn't go out of alignment. So it's a lot safer in some instances to use the back of your router. So I've already preset the depth. I'm going to go ahead and cut that first little cut, and then I'll show you what the next process is. Now there's my first cut, and what I want to do now is take this little 3/8 strip out of there, and remember this was the thickness of the bit. What I'm going to do, I want to cut a 3/4 inch slot. So I'm putting my 3/4 inch bar in there, and I'm going to make another cut, and you'll be able to see what that looks like. So there was the first cut that I made, and you can see, if you look carefully, you'll see there's just a little tiny wisp of wood in there, and that's actually good. That means we're very accurate because this is a 3/8 bit, and if I use it twice, it should give me a 3/4 inch wide slot. Now, if I take my 3/4 inch board and put that in there, Look at that. It's a perfect fit. So what I need to do now is take those measurements and move them from here to here. So I actually want the very center, and I happen to have, you can see there's a little point there, and that little point is 3 and 5/8. So 3 and 5/8 is the center line. So what I want to do now, I'm going to cut this to that width, because this is going to be my middle marker, 3 and 7/8, and then I'll be attaching the hinges on each side. Okay, I wanted to make this cover board just a tiny bit longer because it's going to be the marking board, and I've also made it a tiny bit shy, and that's so that I can put some veneers in there like that, so that when I put the hinges on, there's a tiny bit of a gap in there in case we ever get some sawdust or something down in there. And I'll take those and align those like that. So I'm just going to go off camera and just take a moment and attach those hinges. Well, look at what happens when you look around. I actually found some still in a package even. If I can get them out. And they're a little bit smaller, so they're going to be even better. There we go. Yeah, that's better. These were just stiff. If you're going to make something like this, you want to have decent hardware for it. So, all right, so that's good. Okay, those hinges are on there. Perfect. Okay, I'm all set up here to do our test cut. So I'm just going to draw a line on there, and it's just so I can see where it is. I probably would have drawn that line earlier. What I would do is just be lining up this to that. So if I had a long board here, I would be drawing the lines for each shelf at different intervals. Now, what I also want to do, we're going to do what's called a stop dado. And the reason we do a stop dado is so that we can hide. This is going to be my new shelf here. So I think that's a 1/2 inch. And we're going to put that in there, and we don't want the shelf to show at the front of our carcass. So what we do, we drop the router bit down there and we route all that out. Then at the front of this, we just cut a little notch like that, and that fits in there like that so that it hides that little joint in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now we're going to start off with our 3/8 strip, and that's that one right there. And I've also made a cutoff strip from the shelf. This would be an off cut, so I'll be using that in a moment as well. Okay, and there's our cleaned out slot. I've cleaned some of the sawdust out of it. Now we're taking out our 3/8 strip. Now this was to compensate for the router bit, and this is our finished piece. So we're going to do another strip now, and when we get finished, that should fit in there perfectly tight. Yeah, there we go. That fits in there just nice. Now, the next thing we want to do to make this little piece fit in here, you can see at the front here, what I want to do is I'm going to cut that little piece out, and we'll do this. I'm going to cut this off camera, and then I'm going to cut another little strip down like that, cut that out of there, and that should fit on there perfectly. So I'm just going to do that off camera, and then I'll come back and we'll test that. Okay, so there's that little notch, and you always leave the line there, and you don't even need to square this off. I used to square that off. You don't even need to do that because you're going to hide it all anyway. But watch how that joint hides in the front of that. and you get a nice clean, there you go, you get a nice clean joint in the front. And that's what that would look like. So in this case, the shelf would be sitting like this, and that would be the edge of your shelf, and that's what that would look like. And that's just how easy it is to make really good quality edges and good tight fitting shelves on things like a bookcase. If you're making a bookcase or making shelving, that's exactly the kind of thing. Now you could use plywood for something like this and just put it, there's all sorts of different edging that you could put on that, or you could be using natural wood, or you could be using a combination of two of them. And this is the jig that will allow you to do that. So you'll have your, for a bookcase, for example, you'll have your two gable sides, and you'll mark off where you want your shelves to be. This is what you will align to each one of those lines. Then you just flip that back. You'll use your sizing strip, first of all, with your router, just like I did, to get the first pass. And then whatever the shelving thickness is, you'll use that as your second pass, and you'll get nice, tight fitting shelving in there. And if you want to make it look really good, you'll do some plunge cuts like I just showed you how to do. And that will give you some really good looking shelving. That concludes my video for today. I'm Colin Canet for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.